The story begins in 1815, France, where a group of prisoners are pulling a massive ship with heavy ropes. Watching over them is Inspector Javert, a strict officer who believes only in rules and discipline. Among those prisoners is Jean Valjean. When the work ends, Javert orders Jean to bring the ship's flag. Everyone watches in shock as Jean lifts the entire mast with his incredible strength and drops it right at Javert's feet. Javert coldly informs him that his parole has begun, but he never calls him by name, only by his prison number. Years ago, Jean had stolen a loaf of bread to feed his sister's starving child. For that small crime, he was sentenced to 5 years, but after trying to escape several times, his punishment stretched to 19 long years. Now Jean thinks he's finally free, but Javert reminds him, "You're not free, this is parole." He gives Jean papers that he must carry everywhere. Without them, he'll be arrested again. Once Jean leaves prison, he discovers that no one will hire him. Everyone sees him as a dangerous criminal. Hungry and tired, he tries to rest in a stable, but is thrown out again. Eventually, he reaches a church where a kind bishop welcomes him, gives him food, and lets him stay for the night. But in the middle of the night, Jean steals all the silverware and runs away. The next morning, the police catch him and drag him back to the church. But to everyone's surprise, the bishop lies and says, "I gave him all this as a gift." He even hands Jean 2 silver candlesticks and says softly, "Use this silver to become an honest man." Jean is deeply moved. For the first time, someone shows him kindness instead of hate. Realizing his mistake, he tears up his parole papers and decides to start a new life with a new identity. 8 years later, Jean has become a successful factory owner and the mayor of the town. But his foreman constantly harasses the women workers, especially a young woman named Fantine. One day, the women discover that Fantine secretly has an illegitimate daughter named Cosette. They insult her, mock her, and eventually the foreman fires her after she slaps him in anger. Heartbroken, Fantine begs for mercy, but no one helps her. Meanwhile, Jean Valjean arrives at the factory and tells everyone to calm down, but then he freezes. Through the window, he spots Javert, who is now the chief of police in this very town. Jean feels nervous, afraid that Javert might recognize him. Just then, chaos erupts outside. A man has been trapped under a cart. Jean rushes out to help, unaware that this moment will soon change everything. Jean Valjean rushes forward and uses his incredible strength to lift the heavy cart, saving the trapped man's life. Everyone is shocked, especially Inspector Javert, who starts getting suspicious. He remembers a prisoner who escaped 8 years ago, a man with the same kind of strength. But without proof, he keeps quiet for now. Meanwhile, poor Fantine, who was fired from the factory, struggles to earn money for her little daughter Cosette. She first sells her necklace, then her hair, and even a few of her teeth. But still, it's not enough. Desperate to send money to her sick daughter, she's forced to sell her body on the streets. Her health slowly breaks down, and she falls deeper into misery. One night, after being insulted by a rude man, Fantine fights back. The man calls the police, and soon Javert arrives to arrest her. Just then, Jean Valjean appears. When he sees Fantine, he suddenly recognizes her. She's the same woman who once worked in his factory. Fantine, crying in pain, blames him for her downfall and pleads for her daughter's life. Realizing his mistake, Jean feels deeply guilty. He picks Fantine up and takes her to the hospital, promising her that he'll find and protect Cosette. At that same time, Javert receives a letter from Paris saying the escaped prisoner he's been chasing for years has finally been caught. He goes to Valjean and apologizes, saying he was wrong to suspect him, but Jean's heart grows heavy. He knows the man they caught is innocent. That night, after much thought, Jean decides to do what's right. He goes to the courtroom, stands before everyone, and reveals his true identity. He even tells them his prisoner number. Nobody believes him, but he insists. "Ask Inspector Javert. He knows who I am." Before he can prove it, the guards throw him out. Jean rushes back to the hospital, where Fantine is now extremely weak. In her fever, she keeps seeing visions of her daughter. Jean holds her hand and softly says, "Don't worry, I'll take care of Cosette and give her a good life." Hearing this, Fantine finally smiles and quietly passes away. At that moment, Javert enters and tries to arrest Jean. Jean refuses to surrender. He picks up a wooden stick to defend himself, while Javert draws his sword. They fight fiercely, but Jean is no match for the trained officer. In the end, Jean manages to escape by jumping into the river. Meanwhile, little Cosette lives at an inn run by Monsieur and Madame Thénardier. They pretend to take care of her, but in reality, they treat her like a servant. They lie to Fantine saying Cosette is sick, just to get more money. They make Cosette do all the dirty work while pampering their own daughter like a princess. The Thénardier are greedy and cruel. They cheat their guests, steal from them when they're drunk, and even cook disgusting food, sometimes made from stray cats. Cosette's life with them is full of pain and loneliness. That same night, Jean Valjean reaches the inn where little Cosette lives. He gently tells her that her mother, Fantine, has passed away and that she must now come with him. The Thénardier immediately start acting innocent, pretending they've treated Cosette like their own daughter and spent a lot of money on her care. But Jean can clearly see through their lies. Calmly, he says he'll pay off all of Fantine's supposed debts and even gives them extra money. Seeing the cash, the greedy Thénardier happily agree and let Cosette go. Jean and Cosette leave together that night. Moments later, Inspector Javert arrives at the inn and tells the Thénardier that he's searching for a fugitive named Jean Valjean. The couple realize too late who he was and regret not asking for more money from him. Meanwhile, at the city gates, the police are inspecting every carriage. When they stop Jean and Cosette, both panic and escape on foot. Javert spots them and begins to chase, shouting Jean's prisoner number again and again. Using his great strength, Jean climbs a tall wall with a rope, pulling Cosette up with him. They hide quietly until Javert gives up the search. After that, they find shelter inside a church, where Jean comes face to face with a man, the same man he once saved from being crushed under a cart. Recognizing him, the man helps Jean and Cosette hide safely. Now Jean hopes to start a peaceful new life with Cosette, far away from his past. 9 years later, the story moves to Paris, a city drowning in poverty and anger. People are frustrated with the king's rule and remember the revolution that once overthrew the old monarchy. A group of passionate young students called Friends of the ABC begin preparing for another revolution. They spread awareness and courage among the people. Among them is Marius, a young man from a noble family who now lives in a small rented room. He's friends with Éponine, the Thénardier's daughter, but doesn't realize that she secretly loves him. One afternoon, while Jean Valjean and the now grown-up Cosette are helping poor people on the street, Marius sees her and instantly falls in love. The Thénardier, now homeless and desperate, also spot Jean and Cosette. Recognizing them, they decide to trap Jean with the help of some thugs to steal money from him again. But before they can harm him, Javert and his police team arrive and stop the fight. While Javert is shouting at the gang, Jean takes the chance to escape with Cosette. As they run, Cosette's eyes meet Marius's, and both feel a strong connection. Later, when the police leave, the Thénardier tells Javert that the man who escaped was none other than Jean Valjean, the same fugitive he's been chasing for years. Once again, Javert becomes obsessed with catching him. Meanwhile, Marius asks Éponine to help him find out where Cosette lives. That night, Marius meets his revolutionary friends at a cafe, where they discuss their plans against the government. But Marius is lost in thoughts of Cosette. His friends tease him, and Enjolras, their leader, scolds him for thinking about love when the country needs fighters. Suddenly, they receive news that a kind government official who helped the poor has died. Angry and heartbroken, the group prepares to start the uprising. At that same moment, Éponine returns, with Cosette's address. Without wasting a second, Marius rushes out to see her. Meanwhile, Cosette keeps thinking about Marius. She feels lonely because Jean Valjean never lets her go out or meet people, fearing someone might recognize them. Curious and frustrated, she asks Jean about his past and why they must always hide, but he refuses to tell her anything. Upset, Cosette walks out into the garden, and there, right by the gate, she runs into Marius. The two finally confess their love for each other, sharing an emotional moment. But standing far away, Éponine sees everything and quietly breaks down, realizing that the man she loves will never love her back. Just then, Jean Valjean arrives and angrily tells Cosette to go back inside. Marius hides quickly but secretly takes Cosette's handkerchief as a memory before leaving. Moments later, Thénardier and his gang appear. They plan to capture Jean and hand him over to Javert for the reward. But Éponine, wanting to protect Marius and Cosette, screams loudly to warn them. Furious, her father slaps her, but before the situation worsens, police sirens echo nearby, and the gang runs away. Jean, thinking Javert must be close, decides they must escape France immediately. He plans to take Cosette to England. Cosette begs him to stay, but Jean doesn't listen. Before leaving, she writes a short goodbye letter for Marius and hides it near the garden gate. Later, Éponine finds that note. After a painful inner struggle, she hides it and lies to Marius, telling him Cosette has disappeared. Heartbroken, Marius rushes to Cosette's house, but by the time he gets there, Jean and Cosette are already gone. Torn between love and duty, Marius decides to join his revolutionary friends instead of chasing after her. On the other side, Eponine disguises herself as a boy and joins the fighters too. The next day, Enjolras and the students prepare their weapons and march into the streets, calling people to rise up for freedom. During a funeral procession, they begin singing songs of revolution and waving flags high. Slowly, a massive crowd joins them, shouting for a better France. In the middle of the crowd is Javert, pretending to be one of the rebels, secretly spying for the government. But things soon turn violent when the king's army blocks the street and opens fire. Bullets rain down, and chaos spreads as the rebels use furniture and wooden planks to build barricades. The streets of Paris turn into a battlefield. Enjolras leads bravely, inspiring everyone to fight on. He says someone must find out the enemy's next move, and Javert steps forward, pretending to volunteer. By nightfall, the rebels have built a strong defense. Javert returns later, feeding them false information, but young Gavroche recognizes him and exposes his true identity as a spy. The rebels capture Javert. He tries to fight back, even injuring a few, but Enjolras knocks him unconscious. Just then, the soldiers launch a massive attack. Gunfire fills the air, and many rebels fall one by one. In the middle of the fight, Marius grabs a gunpowder barrel to defend the barricade, but a soldier aims directly at him. Before he can shoot, Eponine runs in and takes the bullet herself. She dies in Marius's arms, saving his life. Holding her close, Marius cries as Eponine hands him Cosette's hidden letter, her final gift before she takes her last breath. Now Jean reads Marius's heartfelt letter and realizes how deeply he loves Cosette. Moved by his words, Jean decides to protect the man his daughter loves. He dresses up as a soldier and sneaks into the barricade so no one recognizes him. But when the rebels see him, they mistake him for a spy. Soon Jean spots Javert tied up nearby. Little Gavroche steps in and tells everyone the truth, that Jean is a good man who came to help. Just then, a sniper appears on the rooftop and Jean warns the rebels. Together they take him down, earning everyone's trust. Later, Jean asks Enjolras to let him execute Javert, but instead of killing him, he secretly sets Javert free. Jean says he just wants to prove he's not the monster people think he is. To protect his secret, he fires a fake shot so the rebels believe Javert is dead. The next morning, rain ruins the gunpowder, and only a few rebels remain. The citizens have all gone home, but the ABC group decides to fight till the end. Gavroche bravely collects bullets from fallen soldiers, but gets shot multiple times and dies a hero. Jean carries his body inside, and the rebels, furious, fight harder. Soon the army brings out cannons, and one by one all the rebels fall. Enjolras holds the flag high until his last breath, a symbol of freedom that never dies. As soldiers clean up the streets, Javert arrives and places his medal on Gavroche's body in respect. Then he realizes Jean is still alive and hears sounds coming from the sewers. Down below, Jean struggles to carry wounded Marius through the filthy tunnels. He meets Thénardier, who tries to rob them, stealing Marius's ring. Jean catches him and threatens to drown him, forcing Thénardier to show him the way out. When Jean finally reaches the exit, Javert is waiting. Jean begs for 1 hour to take Marius to the hospital and promises to surrender afterward. Javert, torn between duty and compassion, allows it. But after Jean leaves, Javert, broken by guilt and confusion, jumps into the river and ends his life. Later, Marius wakes up at his grandfather's home, unaware that Jean saved him. When he learns about his friends' deaths, he visits the barricade and mourns. There he reunites with Cosette, who comforts him. Watching from afar, Jean realizes his presence might only bring trouble now. He blesses their love, allows them to marry, and confesses his true past to Marius, asking him not to tell Cosette. After their wedding, Cosette feels sad that her father didn't attend. Meanwhile, the Thénardier arrive in disguise and try to blackmail Marius. They claim they saw a man in the sewer with a dead body and demand money to keep quiet, showing Marius's own ring as proof. That's when Marius understands. The man who carried him out and saved his life was Jean Valjean. Furious, he forces the Thénardier to tell the truth. That night, Marius and Cosette rush to see Jean, who is now weak and dying. He smiles seeing Cosette one last time and gives her a letter revealing his life story. With peace in his heart, Jean Valjean passes away quietly. Cosette weeps, but Jean's soul joins the spirits of all who died, fighting for a better France. The film ends with a vision of hope, freedom, sacrifice, and love that never fades.